Hello and welcome to the first emergency podcast of the year. I am one half of your host and crew, Wes Tolleson. Lott joins me from College Station, Texas. We will forego the long intros this episode because we need to get straight into this. As always, every 2 years, TAPPS realigns the divisions, and as always, we have a lot going on here, a lot of shakeup. Not just a little bit. There's a lot going on here. We're going to get right into it. Walker Lott. First of all, any overarching thoughts of the more or less chaos that's ensuing here?
Well, it looks like private school as a whole has grown in, population sizes of each school. So that's not enrollment sizes. That's the correct term. Which I don't think there was a team that went down, but a lot of teams that went up and a lot of surprising teams that went up and also some that didn't shock as much. So, crazy time, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. So we will waste no time. We will get straight into Division One, where in District 1, we see two new teams emerge. We see Legacy Christian of Frisco and Liberty Christian Argyle both move up a division into District 1. In terms of District 2, we see St. Dominic
Savio.
Savio move up. We see St. Michael's move up. We see TMI Episcopal and St. John's out of Katy move up. So that is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 team district in District 2. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in District 1. So Walker, Division 1 has grown significantly from 10 teams to about 16 or 17. What are your thoughts on the newcomers and just what that's going to make for the landscape of Division 1?
Well, that first means that not everyone is going to be able to get a playoff spot in Division One this year, so that's going to be interesting to watch. Secondly, it's also this for a lot of divisions. That means I would love to see how all these districts do this because all these teams, like you just said, 9 team district. So that means that all these teams have 8 teams they have to play during the season, right? If they usually have do district games, that means they have 8 district games already locked up on a 10 game schedule. So these guys, a lot of these teams are not going to have to play a lot of non-district games. And so rivalries are going to have to be kind of different. A lot of those things have to do if they have contracts with other schools, like St. Thomas, for example, is not going to be able to play a lot of other Kincaids of the world. They're not going to be able to play the St. John's or any big public school that they want. So they're going to have to align their schedule to not allow that many games. And we could talk about that forever. District 4 in Division 2, we'll talk about in a second. It's the same way. That's another one that's going to be like you have that many teams you have to face every single year, at least 8, right? So I don't know. Like, so that means only what, 4? No, what is it? 5 and or do they do like 5 and 5 or whatever? So, yeah, it's just an interesting thing. But shocking. Talking about this, I'm gonna go on a rant for a second because this is emergency, so we're just gonna kind of talk about it. For the District 2, I am shocked that Austin Savio got in there. I am St. Michael's. I did not know that was that populous, but very good for them. And TMI Episcopal goes from being one of the lower teams in TAPPS Division 2 in District 3 to District 2 in Division 1. And you have to remember, this is the same TMI Episcopal team that just lost to Shiner St. Paul. That's a Division 4 team, and now they're in Division 1. That's why Katy St. John's is the same way in Division 2, where they're not that great. So it adds a team like St. Thomas or and Tony, and they kind of looking at them like, well, we want to get competition before we get in the playoffs and have to play stronger teams. And playing district games like that might not be the most fun for them. And they're not going to be able to schedule, a little bit tougher teams. So that's, and also, all these teams are going to have to make multiple trips to San Antonio, multiple trips to Austin, multiple trips to Houston, a lot more traveling for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, it's certainly a shakeup. And at the end of the day, there's always going to be a lot of people that complain, like, oh, like from a talent standpoint, or there's so much, dispersion, it doesn't make sense. It's not, we're not shuffling. This isn't divided by talent, it's strictly enrollment. TAPPS kind of has its hands tied in terms of geographic location and splitting teams within districts. Yes, they have control, but in terms of divisions, there are hard and fast cutoffs that they
Yeah.
can't control. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to really touch on in Division 1. It's not huge. I mean, the biggest thing I think is Liberty Christian moving back up, because I think there is a good chance that Liberty Christian immediately becomes the title favorite in Division One. It's going to be between them and Parish, providing that St. Thomas doesn't come out looking like world beaters
Yeah.
in the beginning of the season. But Walker, would you concur that Liberty has a really good chance to come out and be favorites immediately in the biggest division?
Yeah, I think I would because if this is next year, of course, that means Cole Welliver is gone, and guys like Michael Stump, Chase Garnett, or no, Chase Garnett's at 25, but a couple of those guys on that squad are going to be gone for next year. So how do they replace them? That's going to be the questions, and compared to Parrish, who has Sawyer Anderson, Black, blah 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 blah. St. Thomas is going to lose a deep 24 class this next year with Johan, Dante, etc., Tyler Day. So that's gonna be interesting to watch to see them next year and see how they reload. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year in TAPPS Division One. I also think it's crazy that a team like Frisco Legacy goes from a middle of the pack team in Division Two, District One or District Two. Now they have to face all these schools in TAPPS D1, which granted, Nolan is a little bit down right now. TC Addison is not the best right now. It would be interesting to see how these they would face in that division, but I think it's also crazy because it makes sense because what I think they went up like 50 students from like what last year, 21 to 23. And that means it makes sense because, Frisco is an area that's really growing in DFW, especially in Dallas, because a lot of people are moving to the outskirts of Dallas, but still the city. And Frisco is a great way to place that. And so that makes sense that Legacy has been growing a lot. So, but yeah, that's just an interesting one in TAPPS Division One.
Yeah, it certainly is. But with that being said, that's all we're going to comment on TAPPS Division One. Let's now move to TAPPS Division Two, which is certainly seeing a fair amount of shakeup. In terms of District 1, you see Grapevine Faith get moved back over there from District 2. You see TCS Lubbock move up from D3 into D2, and otherwise it's a lot of the same. Coram Deo also gets moved from District 2 to District 1. So that's interesting there. In terms of District 2, this is where you see a lot of really interesting decisions. Grace Prep gets moved up from D3. Bishop Dunn stays. Brentwood Christian gets moved up. Hyde Park gets moved trans-divisional from D3 to D2, or from District 3 to District 2. Austin Regents also gets moved from District 3 to District 2. And Bullard Brook Hill moves up from Division 3 to Division 2. Trying to interchange the words division and district has never been very easy for me. I'm going to stumble a lot here. In terms of District 3, you see it gets absolutely nuked. We had Walker, we had been talking about in previous episodes that we need to get Austin Regents out of District 3. Whenever we were saying that, we didn't mean blow the entire district up. There's only 4 teams left. It's San Antonio Christian, St. Anthony, St. Joseph, and the other St. Joseph, Brownsville, and Victoria. And in terms of District 4, this is just also an absolute mess. Bay Area Christian moves up from Division 3. Cypress Christian moves up from Division 3. Frazzati moves up, if I'm not mistaken. Legacy Prep Magnolia moves up from Division 3. And then everything else stays the same. So Walker, that is a lot of change. Honestly, we could start wherever you want to start because there's just a lot to pick at here.
Oh, I'm so excited for this one because this one is just crazy. We're gonna start with this. I'm gonna put on the screen a map of the state of Texas. Boom, it's on the screen. We love the guys at TAPPS. Why in the world are teams from Austin, Texas, playing teams from Dallas and Tyler? That does not make sense. I'm gonna put lines on the screen, maybe. I'd be like, okay, this makes sense because it is a 2-hour drive from College Station to Austin, so probably around the same thing from Houston to Austin, right? I could probably guess that. So it's from Houston to Austin, it's around 2-hour drive. It is probably 4-hour drive from Tyler to Austin, maybe more. And then a 3-hour drive from DFW to Austin? Like, the math is not mathin'. And
it's not.
I get that that's probably something behind the scenes. If I'm being real, that Austin is finally being like, Regents has finally been like, okay, if we want to win, we need to play better at squads. But if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do that, then why do you not put them in District 1? Being real, why do you not put them in District 1? Because then they can just go up 35 and call it a day. but then you make them now go 35 and go a little bit east, and now that it just doesn't make sense geographically wise. Is that the word? Anyways,
Yeah, it's basically the same. That I mean, it's insane. It's I feel stupid now because we have been constantly drumming for like a month, like get Regents out of
this
District
is not
3. I
what we
think Jack.
wanted, though.
I think Jack Klosek even said like it's almost dangerous at this point. People are going to get hurt.
Yes.
Now that it's happened, I'm like, oh, good Lord, this is even worse. Just because, like, dude, why? It didn't need to be blown up, in my opinion. Like, I think
this. Okay, if you're gonna do it, put the schools that are from Houston and Austin together, like you did in Division One. It's the same thing. Put them in the same district. Think about the district battles of like TWCA, Regents, Hyde Park, Fort Bend, and Second Baptist. They already all hate each other. Really, just put them all together and let them battle it out in the South and call it a day. Because that doesn't make sense. I know you have to also deal with basically District 4, like it's always been, is all Houston schools, which Bay Area, Cypress, Frasity moves in from being just like an independent school to actually District 4, and then Legacy Prep, which has had a pretty good jump in enrollment, so good for them. But Cypress also has Cypress is going to come into that district and cause some chaos. I'm not going to lie to you. That's going to be fun to watch because that's going to be the senior year John Kelly and company. Like that's going to be fun to watch. But Bay Area, is a middle of the pack team, and not middle of the pack, but you get what I mean. In Division 3, same with Legacy, and you now put, like I said earlier, in TAPPS Division 1, where you're gonna have a 8-game slate of district games of all those squads, and then so is Second Baptist not gonna play the Preston Woods and all the elite teams they usually play, or is Fort Bend not gonna play their games? Like this is also crazy for non-conference, but for also head coaches, one of the struggles, of course, is scheduling games, and a lot of people wouldn't want to play the private schools. So I get why you don't really have to worry about a lot of non-district games for you. So that's a benefit. But then on the flip side, we're gonna flip it again, spin it. District 3 only has 3 games in district, so they have to deal with 7 non-district games for teams in San Antonio, and Brownsville, and Victoria. That is going to be so hard for those head coaches to figure out 7 non-district games for their kids. That doesn't make sense to me. And I like District 1. I really do like District 1 in Division 2 because it kind of brings it back to the olden days of when I was playing, where it was Cormdale, Fort Worth Christian, Grapevine Faith, Midland. Midland was in that district. SES, and there was always a Lubbock team. We would always play in basketball, but now we play them in football, so that's fine. And Grace Prep used to be in there, but they're still on that. Grace Prep. No. Well, I guess Grace Prep makes sense, but like Grace Prep is like a 20-minute drive from SES, so like I don't know about that, but that makes sense. But I just it's a good district. I like District 1. District 2 just does not make sense to me because think about how the traveling budgets. So that means a school like Tyler, for example. Okay, Grace. Grace is gonna have to drive all the way to Austin for a game, and then drive back that same night just for a Friday night game. Think about every other sport that they're going to have to deal with too.
They're probably going to have to do it at least twice a lot of years.
Right.
Which is crazy.
That's for the traveling budgets and everything for all the parents involved. Like that's such a crazy ask of these schools to do. I don't get it.
So I'm trying to think hypothetically. So what we would propose is, I guess, move the 3 Austin schools to District 3 and make that a 7-team district, and make District 2 a 4-team district, which that honestly, like, again, somebody's going to have the short end of the stick when it comes to the amount of teams in their district. That's just how it's going to have to be. And at the end of the day, like, even if we're not, and you could always take some teams from District 1 and mix them in with District 2, but even if we're leaving it alone, like we're talking about the difficulty of finding non-district games, the games will still get scheduled regardless. They'll get scheduled. I don't know, from a geographic standpoint, it's borderline ridiculous to me. I know that people smarter than me are making these decisions, and I'm sure there's a legitimate reason. I just can't see it off rip. I have no idea why Regents and Hyde Park and Brentwood are in District 2, having to travel much farther than they already are. But
okay, hey, I'm gonna say it to you now. Okay. Tyler, Grace is looking like one of the better years of Grace's history, right? These next couple years, right? You have a couple guys, Zach Davis at the helm for the next couple years. You look solid. Are you, because we talked about it when Liberty came down with me. Are you annoyed that somehow they put Austin Regents in your district this year?
Not at all. I think it's a great thing. I'm not mad at that. And the main reason I'm not is, first of all, they're not being moved down a division. That's one
True.
thing. It's a reason. And even if it was, they'd fall within the guidelines. I can't complain about it that much. But
Right.
at the end of the day, if you want to go as far as you're going to go, to a state, which is your ultimate goal is a state championship, you're going to have to play these teams along the way anyways.
Sure.
And you might, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I know you want to get to playoffs and say you went deep in playoffs, but at the end of the day, like, it's not going to make much difference whether you lose them first round of playoffs or you lose them in district. So it's not that big of a deal to me. In terms of how good Grace is going to be next year is interesting. I think they have a chance to be good, but they lose, big playmakers like Grant Turner, like JT Williams, like
Sure.
a lot of other guys like Blake Harmon, Dylan Taylor, stuff like that. This isn't a Grace episode, so I'll keep it brief, but it's interesting. It's funny. Jack Klosek, whenever he sent us that the alignment had come out, said Wes is going to be very upset with one of the new additions to Grace's district. And my mind immediately went to, I was like, please don't tell me Liberty got moved into that district, but they didn't. And then my immediate thought was DC got moved back up, and they didn't. So I'm fine. Regents is the lesser of three evils when it comes to that, but. Walker, anything else on D2 before we move on?
Um, I'll leave it with this, and I'll leave it with a little statement and a question to you. I do like that we're kind of bringing back the old rivalries of like Grapevine Faith and Coram Deo into that district and TCS Lubbock for basketball. I really do love that, so I'm happy about that. My question is now to you is, because we've always said Division 2 District 1 is the district of death in private school football. Do you still think it is with All Saints, or with Christian Faith, Midland, SES, and now TCS Lubbock?
No, I don't. I think Liberty being taken out of that. All Saints, and again, even All Saints hasn't looked like world beaters
Yeah.
this up to this year. I don't know what they'll look like next year, but let's just take this, team by team. Coram Deo, no. Fort Worth Christian, no. Faith, no. Midland, maybe. SCS, possibly. TCS, probably not in that division. Like, those aren't teams that you've looked at their performance in the past couple of years and been like a team like Liberty, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a war week in, week out. Now, that does not mean that there's not going to be great competition between these teams. I think a lot of these teams match up with each other very well. Like, I think SCS and TCS will match up well. I think Midland will match up well with them. I think almost every team, really, except Coram Deo, is going to be a really good fight. I just don't think it's a district of doom whenever I'm looking at, Grace, Hyde Park, Regents, mainly Grace and Regents on the other side that I think would be good. Is it still better than District 2 in my opinion? Yes. Is it as good as it was last year? No.
No. I agree with you there. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to like look through the divisions. I 100% agree with that. And I honestly don't know if there even is a district of doom in TAPPS football this year. I don't really think there is. If you want to say there is one, it might be District 4 with the addition of Cypress adding into that district, where you now have Cypress, Second Baptist.
Yeah, but SBS has
TWCA.
been down. Fort Bend Christian's been down.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. But as a perennial power in private school football, having
Right.
Second Baptist, Cypress, Fort Bend, and teams like TWCA coming into there, it could be something. But yeah, I don't know what else. I think that would be the District of Doom this year, for also having to play an 8-game gauntlet. That's kind of my reason. But like, there somehow they made a balance where the teams you play, but also it's crazy geographically.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that brings up a good point. I think how good these divisions are relies heavily on what kind of lens you take when you look at it. Are you looking at how these teams have, performed in the past couple years? Are you taking a wider approach and like how these teams perform traditionally? It's just kind of how you analyze it. But, it's interesting. I'm outside of the geographic issues in District 2. I think this is great. I really, more than anything, I'm thrilled Grace and Brook Hill in the same district again. I love that rivalry, and the fact that it's a district game again makes me really happy. But more importantly, I'm happy to see all of these Fort Worth rivalries being reestablished in District 1. I think that's great for the sport. I like it a lot. And I'm really glad, because that was the main thing that we lamented in the realignment 2 years ago, is the breaking up of all these rivalries, which made the sport great. But now it seems that they're back.
Yeah, I want to say one last thing. When we're talking about the classification, so 6A's classification is 395. If you look at the schools, I don't know if you noticed, but Liberty made it at 401. It was 398, and Liberty made it into Division 1 at 401. So there is,
Ooh.
if 3 students did not go to Liberty, they would be back in Division 2 this year, for the next 2
Jeez.
years. And TMI Episcopal is probably even more mad because they're one person away from staying in Division 2, but they have to go up to Division 1. All Saints on the other side, they're at 376. So they were what, about 20-ish kids away from 20-ish students away from being back into Division 1. So stuff like that, man, it was, some of these teams were very slim on getting back into there or going back to where they were.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna make for a really interesting season next year, but we'll just have to wait and see how that turns out. Now our attention turns to Division 3, where in District 1, you see it's more of the same. We mentioned a lot of people that dropped out. In District 2, All Saints moves up a division into District 3. I think Tyler All Saints does. Honestly, they could have been no, I think they were Division 4, they moved up. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the overall divisions. The main thing I want to hit on, if you will turn your attention to Division 3 District 2, I'm just going to read off the names in this district. You have Dallas Covenant, Tyler All Saints,
True.
Tyler Bishop TK Gorman, McKinney Christian, Dallas Christian. Somebody is going to get hurt playing these games. Listen, the district DC plays in right now, it's not even close at all. Have any of you ever watched a Tyler All Saints football game? It looks like Pee-wee. And that's not a slam against All Saints at all. It's just like All Saints. Have you watched All Saints or Tyler Bishop TK Gorman play football? DC is going to beat them by 87 points. It is insane. It is insane to me that these are going to be district games. It's just, especially with Cypress moving out, I don't know. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's really crazy.
What's crazy too is they're the third enrollment size in that district because McKinney and Dallas Covenant are still above them in enrollment. And they're at 195 kids, and they're one of the best teams in the state. That's insane. Wow. But it's crazy, man. It's crazy. The cutoff for there made sense. Like the highest is 209, the lowest was 134, but like for 4A, sorry, but like yeah, it's a crazy one. That is just crazy. And then on the other side, now, okay, this is the one thing I wanted to talk about for this district. Okay. So you, for this division, you move all those Houston schools out, right? So like Cypress, Bay Area, Legacy Prep, Brentwood, all gone. They just all moved up. So Division 3 for them, no more. So you move from 4 divisions or 4 districts to 3. And so you move Northland, Northland moved up to Division 3. So they're the only Houston school, I believe, in that whole Division 3, which is crazy. That's something that we haven't seen in a while. So shout out to Northland for repping the H-Town in Division 3. But Lubbock Christian has to win the state championship this year, or they're going to have to face Dallas Christian for the next 2 years in that division. And I don't know if they're going to get another one. So if they don't win it this year, it might be rough for them for the next 2 years. They're having to be right in their shadow, like TCS, Lubbock, and others have done for the DC for the past 2 years.
I will say at least Lubbock Christian moves up and gives DC at least maybe formidable trans district opponent, like, because I mean, looking at the rest, Covenant, Colleyville, no. Lake Country Christian, no. Pantego, no. All those teams in their district, obviously, no. Hill Country Christian School, no. Like, and you could say the same thing now. This was more of an issue when DC dropped down a division. We were all just like throwing things at the wall, like, how is this going to look? Well, it looked a lot like we expected. They blitzed everyone in district. But what I will say, at least, and again, I don't mean to turn this divisional analysis into a DC analysis, but it really kind of
at
is
this level. You have to.
Yeah. But like, I mean, at least for Dallas Christian in District 2, at least there's only 5 teams in that district. So you can get like 5 non-conference games and schedule big D1 opponents to see what your team's really
Sure.
made of. Because once you get into district, you're
Yeah.
not learning anything about your team by beating TK Gorman 86-0. Like,
Yeah. It's I guess if you have to think on the other side of it, then they would, if with a senior year Gibby Alvarado, you might see Holy Cross finally in the state championship in next year, because Cypress is out of that district. So, that could be something good to see in a change of scenery in Division Three. They would have to face probably Dallas Christian in that state championship, but yeah, or unless they flip it around, they do like District 1 on the opposite side of District 2 for the playoff bracket, stuff like that. But, hopefully, Gibby and those guys can kind of look at that and be like, okay, well, we play all these teams anyways. Let's win and we can go into the state championship in, next year. And, they still have a chance to do it this year. They're a good squad. I'm just saying, like, with Cypress and how good they look, Holy Cross might have it a little bit easier going into next year. So, Division
yeah,
3 is an interesting one.
it certainly is, as they all are every year. Realignment's kind of like it's like anti-Christmas to me, because
Yeah.
it's like it's very exciting. But it also, unlike Christmas, I don't know how y'all's Christmases go, but I don't usually yell and start getting amped up on Christmas time. But it's interesting. Like, it gives me some excitement to look forward to, and I won't get another like adrenaline crack rush like this until 2026.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah. So D3, not as crazy as D2, but still some points to hit on. Now we move on to D4, where,
Two
to
districts
be
only.
honest with you, there's not a, what'd you say?
There's only two districts in now officially.
There are only 2 districts. You mentioned off the top, which was a great point, Walker, that there's not a whole lot of moving down in this cycle. There's a lot of moving up, which for overall private school is great. I mean, I love
Yeah.
seeing more kids come in. It makes the community a lot bigger and a lot more fun for us to analyze. But that does mean there's a lot fewer teams in D4. So District 1 consists of Fort Worth Temple Christian, Munster Sacred Heart, Fort Worth Mercy Culture Prep, Ovilla Christian, which I will hit on in a second, Dallas First Baptist, Waco Live Oak, and Waco Bishop Riker. District 2 is Central Texas Christian, Hollettsville Sacred Heart, Shiner St. Paul, Covenant Christian out of Conroe, Tomball Rose Hill, and Brian Brazos Christian. So, Walker, there's not a ton to hit on here. It's more of the same. There's not
Yeah.
going to be any real big power shakeup here in D4.
Yeah,
Anything you really take away from that?
Yeah, we have some newcomers into Division 4 and for 11-man football, because I believe Ovilla and Live Oak both played 6-man last year. Same with Conroe Covenant Christian, also played 6-man. So those are 3 new squads to 11-man. So I'm excited to see how they do. I know Conroe has a couple guys, because we kept getting tagged with a couple people over the years from Conroe. So I'm excited to see how they do. And that District 2 is going to be a fun one. That's going to be a fun one for in district, because those are a couple of good squads and come historic programs in Division 4 for the South and the North. I know you're talking about Ovilla in a second, but hey, if Dallas First Baptist doesn't win it this year, it looks like they have a clear shot to win it for the next couple of years if they can if their guys stay there with Caleb Mitchell and Sadu Robinson stay there for a couple of years. You talked about that quarterback, the George
Agnostis, something like that. Yeah.
So he'll be probably the future after Hunter McCoy, right? So you have him leading the charge with those 2 receivers, and I'm gonna guess there's other guys coming up the ranks. So if not this year, First Baptist got the luck of the draw with Lubbock moving out, and them going to be the favorites for TAPPS Division 4 for the next 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Ovilla's interesting to me just because they used to play East Texas Christian Academy whenever, not in football, but in baseball, it was a common opponent. So it's interesting for me to see them get moved up. I was looking at their stats. They're not even really dominant in 6-man ball. They're not going to be a huge threat in D4. So just all that to say, like I hit on earlier, you're not going to see a whole lot of power shakeup in D4 with this happening. You're, like you said, Walker, your powerhouses are still going to be Dallas First Baptist, Munster Sacred Heart, Shiner St. Paul, maybe Central Texas makes a run, but Conroe Covenant, I think, is interesting. I hope they got some guys, but yeah. So like we said, a lot of teams move up, not a lot of teams move down. This leads to only 2 districts in Division 4. So We'll also look at some guys that dropped to independent this year. The Village had already dropped to independent last year. Well, really the only new addition is JP2 out of Plano drops down, which we said on one of our scoreboard
Yeah.
recaps that JP2 needs to blow it up. It's been tough sledding them for football. They haven't gotten the guys in to really be able to compete, and they are certainly showing that in the past couple of years. Walker, you think it's probably the right decision for them to go Indy for a few years?
Yeah, they've been it for the past couple years, right? Since they dropped out of Division One, and I feel like it's the smart decision for them to do it. Try to reorganize that program. El Paso Cathedral was independent last year. Same with the Houston the Village. I will say, the private school football guy tweeted out, when he saw it, and he said for Division One, he said I would imagine a couple of these squads would opt out and go with the independent schedule, which I will say, like, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of things, like San Antonio TMI for that Division Two. I could see them going that way, like San Antonio TMI. I could see like a Nolan maybe going independent for a year, maybe. I don't know. Like some of those squads where if it's gonna be a bad news bears for them for in district, it might be better for them to play good competition, not play in this district. So it's gonna be also interesting to see how many people opt out because TCA Addison opted out probably after a couple of years with how Paris was doing the same thing with Plano did it for a couple of years. Like if any of these teams opt out, that's going to be fun to watch because Fracity was independent, right? I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so then now they are not independent anymore. So do they go back to being independent? Stuff like that. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, you were right. I was mistaken. For some reason, I thought John Paul had moved back up, but they have not. They're still just maybe when I said blow it up, I was referring just to their football program because it has just been
Oh yeah, because it is in a weird spot.
Yeah, I don't know. Teague's still the AD over there, isn't he?
Maybe.
Maybe. I'll look that up. I want to say yes, but that being said, I bring that up because I say if he's the AD over there, I would assume their football team gets back to form at some point. It's just kind of a speculation on my part. But Walker, before we shut this little emergency podcast down, any other overarching thoughts you have regarding the landscape of private school following some pretty big announcements?
A lot of geographical differences that I'm intrigued about. I might make a graphic when I'm done with my exams this weekend that kind of show what the districts are going to look like geographically wise, because it's going to be funny to look at like on a map. But besides that, I honestly don't think it changes anyone's title hopes, which is crazy. I like team wise or like playing wise, you might have some for more in like how easier paths to the state championship or in playoffs, but for the outright winner, nothing really changed.
I think Division One might.
Yeah,
I think Liberty I think it takes away Parish's like paved path to the state title. And that St. Thomas is there this year. We can't discount that, but
right. No, you're definitely right there. I think that's the one change of a title hope of any district or any division is 11-man Division One, which that also going into Division Two, that opens it up with if Liberty is the outright favor in Division Two this year, that opens it up for anyone next year. So
it really does.
Teams like All Saints with Kelvin Ryan in his senior year, Austin Regents with Quinn Murphy in his junior year, Woodlands, Fort Bend, Second Baptist, Cypress Christian with John Kelly. Those teams have a chance now to kind of look at that and be like, okay, the team that is just insane this year is out of that division. How do we respond? And that makes, we always say Division II football is the best Division II in TAPPS, or like in private school football, it's best football is Division II, and it looks like it could be again this year. So
yeah, I agree. I think especially, and again, I talk way too much about District 2, but it's very close to my heart because that's the district I grew up playing in. But I think our Division 2 as a whole, I think it's incredibly beneficial and important that you don't have a team that you look at preseason and be like, that team no doubt is going to win state, because for so long it's been like that. It's mostly just whenever I look back at what Trinity Christian did in TAPPS, and I'm like, playing the sport, you have no, and you can speak to this too, you have no idea how demoralizing it is to like just kind of look out and be like, we have no shot to win a state championship. And for us, we're like, we have no shot to win district this year just because of Trinity. So I think having everything. I'm not saying try to make everything patty cake, everyone gets a trophy, but having things as balanced as they can be to where you can
It's
go out and
competitive.
compete.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's competitive. I think that's hugely beneficial for the sport. I'm a big fan of it. And from guys who played it and know what it's like to go out and feel those games, I think it'll go a long way for the kids. But all that being said, Walker, that in a nutshell is our opinions on the realignment. It's certainly a big shakeup, but it's I think at the end of the day, outside of a few geographic tweaks, I think it's probably for the better. And I'm more or less very okay with it. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, for everyone who probably like, if someone disagrees or comes at us, it came out not that long ago, so these are our like fresh reactions to this thing. So if something changes, or something more balanced, or something happens, remember that. And also, opinions might change. We will have more time to look over it, and the off season and everything else. But yeah, these are our fresh reactions. Just remember that.
Exactly. Yeah. Please keep that in mind, or just chirp us anyways. I'm honestly okay with that. I enjoy
Yeah.
all engagement is good for the algorithm, so I'm all right with that. But all that being said, I've been half your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott has fantastically been himself. This will not alter the schedule of any of our episodes. We'll still have one up this Thursday and the next Thursday. We will see you in one of those. See you later.